questions, and feel free to ask my opinion, or we can just discuss, different things. But like, your retail journey has been a very interesting journey, right? Like, you started off, I believe, I remember when I worked with you at Holt Renfrew, you'd started off in operations, had you? Or like, how did you get into retail? And then how did it lead you into the career that you're in currently?
I got into retail totally by accident. I went to the Bay to get a part-time job. I wanted some money for Christmas. And so I got a part-time job at Christmas, and they just kept giving me shifts. And the next thing I knew, I was a department head of jeunesse and then ladies wear, and I was still going to university full time. So I joked that I got sucked into the retail vortex because then I was like, I'm going to take a year off after my degree and just try to figure out what I'm going to do. Do I want to go? I was thinking I'm going to go into law, or I was going to go into something else. I don't remember. I think it was HR or something. Two different channels,
Yeah,
for
very
sure.
different. Yeah.
And I ended up being asked to be the counter manager of Estee Lauder, and I ended up doing 5 years as in Estee Lauder as a counter manager and business manager. And I started off at this little small store in Mississauga, and then the next thing I knew, I was running the flagship Bloor Street location for Holt Renfrew, and that's how I got into Holt's the first time around.
Oh, wow. It's fascinating because we had a few people on here, and we always have that question. It's like, how did you get into retail? Did retail choose you, or did you choose retail? So do you think retail chose you, or did you choose retail?
Yeah. I think retail chose me because I was at a crossroads and didn't know what I wanted to do with myself. I was 21 years old or whatever I was when I graduated. And I didn't know what my path was yet. And so like I had taken a degree in political science and organizational behavior. And here I was being an Estee Lauder counter manager. It was just like, but it was just so much fun. I was doing special events. I was ordering my own inventory. It was like running my own little business. And I just loved it so much that I did 5 years there. And then I went into the buying office doing, I set up the automatic replenishment system for Holt Renfrew.
Oh,
and
wow.
So it was in like the yeah. And then from there jumped to the Bay as a planning manager for their .com and their rewards program, the old HPC rewards program.
So then how did that benefit you, like going from shop floor and then going into those roles? Because there's a lot of people on these calls come from different backgrounds, but a lot of people that work in retail, some of us have started shop floor, some people are in head office positions on this call. And there's some people that actually currently are in field leadership roles. So like, how did that benefit you going into the office and doing all the planning and that kind of stuff from shop floor?
One of my hiring managers, when I changed from planning to CRM, he said I gave him and his team street cred because I had been because I'd been in the stores and I had a really fine understanding of what would land in the store well and execute well and what wouldn't. So you have all these people in the head office. It's a bit of an ivory tower and they're coming up with ideas, but they're just not executable and they're not going to land well. And so I think that gave me a totally different perspective from the customer's lens. And from the store ops and execution lens on what was achievable or not achievable.
Yeah. So what is one of your most successful strategies? What was one of your most successful strategies, would you say, in your career where you really felt like you got to put all your skills in place and you achieved like a huge success? What would you say?
I would say it was just recently with Canopy Growth, where I was the director of retail marketing. And cannabis is a very highly regulated industry. It's like trying to market cigarettes and crack. Like it's so difficult. The government has made it so difficult to market it then, and you can't talk about it anywhere where there's minors, and then you can't show a logo more than 300 centimeters square. I'm like, I'm going to do a billboard with a logo this big. Are you kidding me? Like what's that? They've made it. It's so crazy. And so I wanted to do a media campaign to drive traffic to retail. And they're like, you can't do media, Leah. I'm like, there's going to be a loophole. We're going to find it. They're like, no. I'm like, we need to drive traffic. We need to drive conversion. If I'm only talking in age-gated locations like resto bar ads in the bathroom, like that's literally where I can advertise because it's 19 plus and it's been age-gated. Or I could do it on porn sites. Like there's really and I'm like, I don't want to advertise on porn sites. So I'm like, I want a mass media campaign. And so we were working with it, and we're like, I'm like, I want to show that our stores are warm and inviting, and there's real people in there. Like, we have frosted windows, which is another part of the the requirements. And I said, it looks like a nefarious sex shop. Like, what's behind this screen, right? Like, people don't know what's inside, and we have these people who are curious and kind of curious who would like to step in, but it's like you get to there and you're like, oh my God, like, what's behind this wall, right? In these windows. So we can't, and I'm like, I want to show our bud tenders and how warm and inviting the store is. And like, they're beautiful. They're aesthetically gorgeous. And so we came up with a campaign where we had the bud tenders talking about their jobs and what they loved about it inside the store. So we shot real staff. We like asked the district managers to pick like the creme de la creme, people who they didn't think would get fired or quit in the next month, because this campaign was going to run for a year, and had them talk about their jobs. And it was so cute and so quirky and so beautifully shot. And then we played these videos because the loophole was you can't show people either in any of your ads, but they were not people talking about cannabis. They were talking about their job. So it was a bit of like an HR play. But what it did was it introduced you to individuals. They'd be like, hi, I'm Jay, come and meet me, blah, blah, blah. And like, and they would talk about like a little bit of education and their roles. And it was phenomenal. The traffic went off the chart when this went out there. We played it in Cineplex VIP theaters instead of, you know, instead of bar bathrooms. It was at Cineplex. Like, it was an amazing ad. We geo-targeted it to where the stores were located. So you wouldn't have seen it in Toronto, but you would see it in Winnipeg and London, Ontario, and Saskatchewan, right?
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, so, and it was just amazing. And then we shut it down for 2 weeks as we were changing some of the channels we were on. Like, we had it on Twitter and a few other places as well, because it was so benign. We played it in a whole bunch of places. And during those 2 weeks that we shut it down, our traffic dropped like 30%.
Wow.
And then when it went back on, the traffic went again. So it was really a phenomenal success and had amazing return on ad spend.
I'm not surprised, because when I worked with you at HR2, I thought you were so creative, and I thought HR2 was such a great experience being part of that, you know, small team. It was like a startup, and you did some amazing things there, right? Like, in terms of creativity and driving traffic.
That's very much how Canopy was. It was 10 of us in an office in the distillery district in Toronto, in this little tiny office, and then the team just kept growing and growing. And I was brought on as the marketing lead for the Tweed brand. And I was a person of like a team of one for 7 months. And then I went to my leadership and said, here's what success looks like. And I showed them a business plan, and I showed them an entire team structure. And I'm like, and these are the results we can achieve with this kind of a team, instead of it just being Leah every day trying to design all of everything. And, you know, like, very much like at HR2, where you had to roll up your sleeves and be everything. I built out a team of specialists, and yeah, it wasn't my leadership coming to me and saying, we need you to build a team. It was me going to them and saying, you need a team, and this is what we can do for you.
Which is awesome. And I think you learn that, right, when you're in startup mode, working in retail and startup. It can be a little bit nerve-wracking and scary, but at the same time, the benefits of what you get to build and put your mark on. So my next question to you, just talking about that, you came up with this team. Like, what is your approach to building a high performance team? Because what I remember about working with you, you were really good at finding the right talent. So, and like, people love working for you. They follow you around. I know that, which means you've got amazing leadership skills, and we're passionate about leadership skills at retailu. That's what we do. We teach leaders to be great leaders. So like, what's your approach to building a high performance team?
I think part of it is intuition, and I'm a people person, and I have a really good read on people. Like, jokingly, if I had a retail superpower, it's hiring people. So I look for people who, like, I feel have passion. They're excited, they're self-starting, they have a great attitude, and I can teach them the rest.
Right.
Like, I've hired people who have minimal experience and brought them in, mentored them, and just let them run.
Right.
One of the things as a leader for me is making sure, and this sounds really basic, but it's not always at all jobs, is that I want them to feel safe, and that I have their back always, and that I will remove barriers for them, and they are, so that they don't have to worry about all the shit in the background. They can just
Yeah.
be them and run with it. So I think
Yeah,
that's
it
one of
sounds
the
like
big
common
things,
sense.
giving them very clear, but it's not always there, as we all
No.
know. Like sometimes we are not feeling safe at in our role, and we don't feel like somebody has our back, you know, and you feel vulnerable at times. And when you feel like that, you can't perform at your best, and you're not like a high performing team.
Yeah.
So as a people leader and as a people person, I kind of read those situations, and I'm very good at building relationships cross-functionally in the organization so that we have a strong sense of, you know, collaboration and teamwork.
Yeah. It's important, and it's funny because a lot of times you think that's common sense, but it's really not, right? Because again, like you said, people get fearful or they don't want to. I mean, I know in my own career, like I just put a video out on LinkedIn this morning. We're doing these videos for the book, and it's like there's been times in my career where I've not been able to say what I wanted to say in fear of, like, you know, losing my job or like being judged
Yeah.
or sticking up for the wrong
Yeah.
person, because there's all that corporate stuff that goes into it. And I think the future of retail leadership, or leadership in general, that needs to change. Like people need to,
Yeah.
you know, stand up and make the right decisions for all and actually be open to it instead of protecting their position, you know, because you should be protecting your people if you have that position, not protecting your position, right? Which is, that's a whole.
Then you're spending all of your energy. You're spending all of your energy on the wrong situation instead of building the business and driving it forward. It's more, yeah, like you said, self-preservation. And we can all make a list of all the shitty bosses we had and all the great bosses we had. I think we all have experience with that. And so for me, I'm sure people put me in either bucket too, but I always try to take the things that I loved about great leaders and incorporate them into my style, and take the things that I didn't like about leaders and never ever do it, ever. And so, and I wouldn't even call them leaders. Like when you're a manager who leads by fear, intimidation, or bullying, that's not a leader in my opinion. That's a boss, basically, a basic boss. But a leader cares.
Yeah, totally. So so that's, I like that you said that you take what you learn from leaders, that, you know, good things, and you put them into place, and the things that you don't like. So beyond that, like what's one of the biggest lessons learned throughout your career? Like if you had to give somebody else advice, like what's one of the biggest lessons learned?
Oh, that's a good question. I think for me personally, it's not spiraling into a negative thought cycle. It's really staying positive and finding the solutions. So everybody can come to you and say, this isn't working, this sucks. But not everybody can come to you and say, there's a problem and I've got the solution and here's how we're going to fix it. I've been thinking about this. This isn't working and this is why. It's finding the whys and the hows instead of the just, you know, pointing the finger and saying this sucks and doesn't work.
Yeah.
I think that's the difference between somebody who advances in their career and somebody who becomes a leader versus somebody who just does.
Yeah, totally.
That's something I learned over time.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. And it's hard, right? Sometimes I was just having a conversation with a girlfriend this morning, and, you know, she's going through personal stuff. And I'm like, I know we all want to regurgitate it and get it out and talk about it all the time, but it's not helpful. I'm like, let's focus on what we can do in the next 24 hours, the next, you know, 48 hours, like personal and work. It's like, you know, that's why my book's called what it is. It's a positive effect. I don't know how else to be. It's just, you know, part of who I am.
There's nothing wrong with a good vent session.
Yeah.
Because it gets all that shit off your shoulders, but then you need to turn it around and say, like, okay, let's not spiral into negativity. How do we turn this around? And for me, I don't like to hear the word no. I always try to turn it into a yes. And if I can't turn it into a yes, then I've got a plan B. Because if I feel passionate about something, it's really the right idea. I'm like, how do I turn a no into a yes?
Yeah.
So it's not just getting shut down right away. Because if you really think it's the right thing, then it's explaining the whys and getting the buy-in.
Yeah, totally. How do you like balance career and family? Like, because you've got 3 boys. I was always like, oh my God, you got like 3 young boys. I'm like, how do you balance that? Like your brain, even balancing your brain.
3 young boys and sports and school. Yeah. I basically am a workhorse from 8 to 5, and then I shut it down and I focus on family. Like I do not work in the evenings at all, and I don't really work on the weekends. I mean, yeah, there's times when I've got a deadline or a presentation and I've got to hammer it out on a Sunday afternoon or something. But I really like my time during the day is so, I've just made it so effective. I'm not one of those people that, you know, goes and stands around and chats for an hour somewhere, although you do know I'm a chatty person.
Yeah,
I
you
try
are.
to get it, I try to get it done, and just at like at a really fast pace, so that in the evenings I've got time with the family. Like the stuff I can crank out during the day with my head down is surprises me sometimes too. I can put together, you know, a whole strategy deck in 3 hours and have cranked it out. But then I need to be present for the kids. And I mean, we're living during the COVID apocalypse right now. It hasn't been easy. Like there's kids walking in and out of Zoom meetings, and we started calling them like guest appearances and walk-on roles, because they're constantly in the background like little heads. But yeah, it's like it was trying to create some time to shut down and have time with them during the day, even, you know, like
Yeah.
trying to disconnect from the meetings.
Yeah. What would you say to somebody that was, you know, wanting to follow your path and like having a career in marketing? What would you tell them, like if that's what they wanted to do?
I mean, I don't know what I would tell them. I'm not really a big advice giver, but marketing, it for me, is this beautiful blend of analytics and creativity. And so that's why I love it personally, is because I love math and spreadsheets, and I love tracking results and putting together these PowerPoints and getting up and speaking about it. But I also love like playing with colors and ideas and creativity. And if either one of those things is appealing to you, that's what marketing really is.
Oh, I never looked at it like that, actually. I always thought of marketing, I mean, because I was in retail operations and sales. I didn't look at marketing as the whole analytics piece of it. Like I worked with the CRM team and that kind of team. I'm definitely learning that now in my business, like with an online business. But I have no clue about like Google Analytics and this and that. I'm like on YouTube, you know, like trying to learn how to do all of this now, because it's not something that
I
I
mean,
ever.
even if you're a small business operator, you can use Facebook and run ads on Facebook and use the Facebook analytics to tell you how you're doing. And you can spend an extra $25 to get more reach or whatever, but there's analytics there to show you how you're performing, because without knowing that, you're just, you know, speaking into a void. But always going back to see how, if you've moved the needle. And again, you need to know what your baseline is. You need to know your market. You need to know your business. And then see where you're getting traction. And marketing is about a few different things. One of them is driving traffic, obviously, to a retail location, but there's also just creating like awareness and consideration of your brands. And not just like there's a whole funnel of driving to actual conversion. And you need to measure those steps along the way and really always know your core customer and who you're going after. So there's definitely a ton of research that goes into everything before you launch anything in marketing.
Yeah, I've been learning that with Retail U over the past couple of months of being like quarantine. I'm like, okay, before I was just like making content and hoping people would buy it. And I'm like, okay, I need to actually analyze who's buying it, where are they coming from, and learn all of that technical piece, which is kind of interesting because I am a sales driver. I work in sales and operations, so I enjoyed that piece of seeing the result, you know, which is kind of cool. So when you think about retail, you've had an amazing career in retail so far, and sure, like more great things to come. So what do you love it? Why retail? Like, what do you love about it?
I love the products. Like when I went into CRM, I really missed being connected to the product and the customer journey, because it was again a little bit more ivory tower. We were only looking at the consumer and consumer behavior. But I'm one of those people that walks through a store and has to like go and check and touch all the latest, greatest new stuff. I'm always excited to see the product launches. I love to shop. Although I've turned into an online shopper, quite frankly, but especially now. Yeah, I just love the whole cycle. I love the consumer journey. And I can't walk through any store without automatically like evaluating everything in the store, from signage to the journey to the way the customers interact. I just, yeah, I can't just go in and shop anymore. It's just
Yeah.
always there.
I know it's a curse, right? Like it's like totally, it's like you're going shopping and I'm always like, oh, customer service, you know, visual merchandising. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like I'm so involved in it. Do you have any memorable moments of when we worked together at HR2?
I mean, I loved HR2. Like before I had my job at Canopy, I would have said that HR2 was my favorite role because it was this fun startup mentality with a bunch of superpowered people that felt like a family. And that's very much what Canopy felt like in the earlier days, especially before we got so huge. But even in the end, we were a very, very strong family that really looked out for each other.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think that's one of the things I take away with me as a people person. But I also had some of the strongest, best leaders I've ever had in my career with Heather Arts, and also Kimberly Grable, which were two unbelievable female leaders in a world where we still are so male dominated at the at the VP and the C level. To have those two strong, amazing women was just like the best experience.
Yeah, it was amazing. Like my memorable moments were like, I think that was the first time I actually experienced executive meetings in my life. Like I've worked with, we've worked with all different people. Like when I saw Mark join Tweed, I was like, oh my God, you must gotta go and find this girl called Leo. You got to find her. She's so cool. She's really talented. So it's
He's
good.
like, no, not really.
Yeah. But it's good to build those positive relationships, right? Because what I always say is you just never know what the future holds. Like, especially in retail. Retail right now is changing so much. Like brands are coming, like another announcement today with Victoria's Secrets and Bath and Body, and you just never know what's going to happen. One minute you can have this kick-ass job, and the next minute the company's gone, and now all of a sudden, like, who do you know from your past that can help you, or that you can reach out to? So those relationships are just so important, to keep them
I
going.
always say that retail is an incestuous business because we all end up working with each other again and again, especially after you've been in the industry for 20 years. So I know people at pretty much every major retailer in Canada, from like TJX, Winners to Loblaws, any of the major retailers, so that I can connect people with.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true.
And now cannabis.
Cannabis, which I remember one of the biggest marketing that we hired this new VP of marketing, Nat Binder, and maybe she'll be one of our coffee chats, but her first ever campaign at David's Tea was the day that you guys, the day that cannabis became legal in Canada. She posted this post on social and it said, "Our green has been legal since." And it was like the date of when David's Tea started. And it was a picture of a silver bag with green tea coming out of it, like a herbs, right? And it was the #1 liked and commented post of David's Tea history. And when she did it, we were all like, oh, I don't know if that's a good idea, And she's like, I'm doing it. And she did it. And it was like off the charts, like so successful. And, it's funny, right? Sometimes it's like just speaking to people, and like I'm learning that now with retail. It's like, how do you market and how do you speak that language, which what you shared earlier about Canopy Growth, like that marketing campaign that you did, you're speaking the language of people. And I think that's what makes you a great marketer whenever I watch anything that you're doing. So super excited. So, we know that there's been changes and now you're on your path to potentially a new opportunity, a new career. So what are you looking forward to in your future?
Surprisingly, like just as a background, 200 of us were laid off from Canopy Growth 2 weeks ago, or I guess it's 3 weeks ago today, maybe. And it's been like a myriad of emotions where I've lost my baby that I built, which is a little bit heartbreaking. But I also feel like it's not very often that talent like us goes back out on the market. And, people have been reaching out to me looking for people, and I've been pretty proactive in reaching out to some of these groups and sending lists of people, like full Excel spreadsheets of talent, to these recruiters, saying like, here's some of the best, and if you're looking for anybody, please reach out to me. And they are. So I feel like we still are this Canopy family that are still looking out for each other and still connecting. I think there's a lot of opportunity. It's scary to look for a job right now in COVID. I mean, let's face it, companies are crumbling around us, and there's not necessarily as many job openings as before. But I truly believe with this much talent, that it's not every day that somebody like us comes back out on the market. That's
Yeah.
my positive view of it. It's like,
Totally.
and now I've had 3 or 4 VPs just reach out and cold call me to say, hey, would you be interested in talking to us about a role? And I'm like, absolutely. And that wouldn't have happened unless I was let go.
Right.
They wouldn't have just reached out to me. So there's always an opportunity. I don't know what that opportunity is going to be yet, but I'm optimistic.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to doing something. I'd love to do something again in cannabis because it's been the best ride of my life. But other than that, I would love another small startup company that's been like, that's how HR2 was, that's how Canopy was. And it just, I love it. I absolutely love it. It's like a thrill.
Yeah, there's something about
until it's not.
Right? There's something about being part of, well, it's true. There's something about part of being a part of that core group of starting something and building it. And then, you know, then when you see it like get to where it is and you're like, oh, I like what you said earlier. We were talking, you're like, yeah, it's good until it's not good anymore. I'm like, that's such a true statement.
Yeah, it was amazing until it wasn't.
It wasn't.
Yeah.
I'm going to write that one down and steal it from you. It's brilliant. All right. Well, if we're going to start wrapping up, it's 1:35. It was a pleasure, Leah, reconnecting with you and having you on a Retail Coffee Chat. So thank you so much for taking the time out of your day. It was brilliant. Got some great insights from you. This will be on the replay on the Retail U events tab for anybody that didn't get to join. I know I had a lot of people email me, so that'll be replayed. But other than that, you know, good luck with the future. I'm sure you're going to be, you know, adding value, and we're going to see you doing something exciting sometime soon. And thank you very much to everybody that joined the chat today. Have a fantastic week, and you know, hopefully we'll see you on another Retail U chat.
Thanks so much, April. It was great.
Awesome. All right. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Bye.